So I want to congratulate the Ambiance Committee once again, for their very nuanced camouflage of the pipes of that pipe organ. It's really an incredible job. And commend the choir for their pipes as well. I'm just curious, how many ministers are in the room this morning? Okay. All right, let's do it again. Close your eyes this time. Trust me, I will not make faces at you while your eyes are closed. So close your eyes, and if your eyes are closed, raise your hand. No matter what I say next, keep your hand raised. Now open your eyes. If you are a minister, your hand is raised. Look around, keep them up, look around. These are the ministers of Mountain Vista Unitarian Universalist Congregation. So this news flash directs me to address three questions. How is this so? What does this mean? And how do we do this? So, how is it that we are all ministers? It's a question that we could answer by looking at history, or at least that's one way to answer it. Our tradition is seated in Christian history. Our roots have spread, but Christianity is our seed bed. Meanwhile, the seed bed of Christianity were the 12 disciples. These 12 people were charged by their leader with the task of ministry. In other words, all who were participating in that movement were ministers. This is the primordial model of church life. It is the genetic makeup of our religious community. And as an aside, this didn't just happen in Christianity. For instance, the same sort of setup occurred in Buddhism. Buddha's first disciples soon became the teachers of, and to mix vocabularies, the ministers of Buddhism. So back to Christianity. The newly minted ministers were sent out to disseminate and teach and to heal and to minister to each other and to those who were in need of ministry. And over time, now over centuries, this teaching class became institutionalized. It became the priesthood, and a hard line was drawn between priests and lay people. In fact, Mass was delivered in Latin long after Latin was dead. And during Mass, the Bible was read in Latin and was not read to people who could not understand the language anyway, but to the altar. So not only were the people not charged with ministry during that time, they were barely engaged by sanctioned religion. And then comes Martin Luther, the German radical who not only nailed his 95 theses of contention against the church door, but perhaps even more importantly, transcribed the Bible into German and then had the gall to publish it. Now, prior to Luther, there were a few Englishmen that translated the Bible into English, but had not distributed it widely due to the fact that the printing press had not been invented or promulgated yet. And also, of course, because it was punishable by death to read the Bible in anything other than Latin, which, as you may know, is not among the languages in the original transcripts of the Bible. Oh, boy. So among these Englishmen were John Wycliffe in the 1300s, and in the late 1400s, a fellow named Thomas Linacre. I'm not sure if I'm pronouncing his name right, but I don't think that he'll confront me on the matter. This guy, Thomas Linacre, he learned Greek, Koine Greek, which is the New Testament is written in Koine Greek. And then he translated that into English and compared it to the Latin Vulgate that was being widely used, or at the point of death. And after he did that, he said, either this original Greek is not the gospel, or we are not Christians. Whoops. So the result of Wycliffe, Linacre, Luther, and their kind was to break the religious monopoly of Rome and deliver the Bible into the hands of the masses. And this was a watershed moment in the development of Christianity and indeed in Western civilization. And over time, in some strands of Christianity, this popularization of religion wound up creating and generating a call for what came to be known as the priesthood of all believers. And it is out of that strand of Christianity that Unitarianism and Universalism and eventually Unitarian Universalism evolved. The priesthood of all believers. So it is because of the original gathering of the 12 was charged with ministry, and because translating the Bible into the common language meant that interpretation and revelation were open to all, that we have with us today the notion that when you engage your religious community, you do so as a minister. So what does that mean? To be a minister? You would think that I would know, but this was actually a very difficult part of this sermon to write. It's a tough one. What I came up with is coming into a sense of ministry with regard to each other and this community and yourselves may include, but is not the same thing as liking any of the aforementioned. Ministry is more than affection. It is a receptive, attentive, principled, and flexible perspective. And there is a part of it, a huge part of it, that is devoid of self-interest. Ministry is other-interested and is rooted, I believe, in an understanding of what a religious community is called to do for those within it and for those not yet within it. For me, this is a calling to provide each other with opportunities to find deep satisfaction, strength, and resolve by welcoming, caring for, and inspiring those within and beyond our walls. This is an other-interested understanding that compels me. It is a force, and I feel it as a force, and I invite you to do the same, a force that shapes my character and the character of my relationships. And so that may not be, in fact, such a rare dynamic. We are always fundamentally formed by relationship. But I think the intentionality of the ministerial perspective, the awareness and the hope called for by the identity as a minister are rare. And that is your identity to adopt. The other interestedness and the hope of it are rare. And so that relationship is formative in a unique way. And so engaging our covenant and engaging those who enter into it and engaging the community that covenant creates as ministers means that you are, and perhaps have been, and certainly will be, delving into a practice and a perspective that is formative of your character. This is a practice and perspective wherein self-care is very important, but defensiveness is detrimental. Defensiveness arises from self-interest. Spiritually, self-interest is a seedbed of dead soil. Let us rather grow. Let us be interested in the well-being and process of the other. Not to meddle or make same, but primarily to listen. To listen. And this project takes faith. Faith that other interestedness is worth it. And this is not a certain prospect or one that you may ever see conclude. And so our faith is always tested. But it is testified to and rooted in the wisdom of ages past and multitude of traditions and the interconnectivity of being that ours and others affirms. It is rooted in the long process that some have called salvation and others may call self-development. If patience is our resolve, resilience will be our strength, and satisfaction then is not a goal, but a source of power. Satisfaction, strength, and resolve. So how do we practice this? How do we act as ministers? How do we put this perspective into action? It's quite easy. Or rather, it is quite easy to begin doing this, and you've already nailed part of it. You are here. You have come to such a place as this. Your presence is the first step. The second step is to develop awareness, self-awareness of your ministerial opportunity, your ministerial perspective, your privilege and responsibility, your other interestedness. Develop an awareness of your other interestedness. And the third part is active application of your presence and your perspective. And this is the step where you participate in this community of ministers. You listen, you work, you serve, you guide, you lead, you learn, you follow, you seek, all informed by this intentional ministerial perspective. Now, some of these tasks may feel or sound rather mundane, but with the right perspective, plunging the toilet is ministry. Though I am glad that is not in my contract. But I think you know what I mean. Your time here engaging in the function of this church is ministry. It is not self-interested, but is self-reflective. Right? We have committees and classes and projects and discussion groups all present the invitation to the ministerial perspective. Yet there is still an even more pointed manner in which you can cultivate this character-forming perspective, and that is small group ministry. In Mountain Vista, Unitarian Universalist congregation is blessed with a vibrant small group ministry program called Finding Heart, which seems to me to be an invaluable asset to this community. Now, the distinguishing trait of intentional small group ministries, which in UU parlance are frequently referred to as covenant groups, is their explicitness with regard to lay ministry. So there's a great book, The Complete Guide to Small Group Ministry. It's written by Robert Hill, and he has this to say about covenant groups. He says they are a transformational practice through which we, with others, can discover our own underlying assumptions about reality and examine our ways of being. The practice of small group ministry does ask us to suspend judgment long enough to hear respectfully the understanding of others, even those vastly different from our own. So in covenant groups and in the Finding Heart program here, each group usually has a central topic, focus, or activity, and most meetings include some form of worship and sharing. Finally, each group is encouraged to develop their conversation into some kind of service project. So there is reflection, sharing, and service. It is a beautiful and compelling process. And this is from the Finding Heart Charter. The name of the program is a play on the words to find heart, to find what one cares most deeply about, to find the courage to bring those values we care about to life as service to others in the larger world of family, congregation, and society. The purpose of Finding Heart is to help participants develop and actualize their own sense of lay ministry, guided by the core values of their hearts and supported in their efforts by the Unitarian Universalist religious community.